Corona doesn't discriminate, so the vaccine shouldn't discriminate. Hello. Welcome back to my channel. It's Felicia Yenswa, and I'm so glad you can join me. In today's video, I really want to talk about the vaccine apartheid. Yes, the vaccine apartheid. So obviously, if you're here in the world, planet Earth, you know that we're in the midst of a global pandemic. Yes, COVID-19 has come to
destroy us all.
God forbid, hopefully not. We will destroy it. And how we will do that? With the vaccines, of course. And if you're here on planet Earth, then you know the vaccines are out. The vaccines are literally everywhere. We've got even different varieties of vaccines. We've got Moderna, we've got Pfizer, we've got AstraZeneca, like the list goes on. It is a vaccine galore. If you are living in a rich country, that is. So far, the studies have shown the vaccines have been effective too. A Scottish study has shown that the vaccines have led to a substantial drop in serious illness and hospital admissions by up to 94% 4 weeks after administering the first dose. And that's huge. You know, the whole idea of us going in lockdown is to reduce the pressure on the NHS or our healthcare services, depending on wherever you are. So a reduction in overwhelming the hospitals and hospital transmissions, as well as serious illness, you know, saving lives, is a good thing. And more importantly, this means that there is an end in sight. There's an end. Oh my gosh. I personally cannot wait to leave this country and go on holiday. Like, I've actually had enough. It's too much. And I know some people definitely have their concerns about the vaccine, but let me tell you something. Me personally, I will be drinking it. I want them to inject it into me. If I have to sniff it, I will sniff it, because I want my life, I want my freedom back. And if the vaccine is the way to get my freedom back, then I'm gonna do it. So on the whole, this sounds like a good thing, right? It's like there's hope for everyone, right? No. It turns out that although the coronavirus operates on an equal opportunities basis, you know, anyone can get it, no matter if you're rich, you're poor, you're black, you're white, the vaccine, on the other hand, discriminates. Apparently, the vaccine discriminates depending on the level of income of your country. So as you can see, demonstrated by this wonderful bar chart here, wealthy countries have bought more than half of the confirmed vaccine doses. Take from that what you will. So whilst us in the northern hemisphere, you know, the advanced economies, the richer countries, are enjoying this vaccine galore, the outlook is quite shaky for other poorer countries who may not have access to the vaccines as much as we do. According to the Economist Intelligence Unit, the United States, the UK, Israel, and the EU will receive widespread vaccination coverage by 2021. However, 84 of the world's poorest countries will not receive enough vaccinations to achieve herd immunity until 2024. That's 3 years from now.
3 years.
That's a bit concerning. So given that the vaccines are already out, they exist, don't richer countries have a moral obligation to provide poor countries with access or help them get better access to the vaccines? Well, personally, I would think yes, but you know, politics and all that jazz, so There's actual research that backs this moral argument as well. So modelling by the Northern Eastern University has shown that if the first 2 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines were distributed proportionally by the natural population, worldwide deaths will be down by 61%. And this is important because each pandemic day that goes by results in a loss of life which could have been prevented. However, unfortunately, that is not the case. What are they doing instead? Well, just like rich people hoard wealth, rich countries are hoarding vaccines. In fact, what rich countries have decided to do is engage in some kind of vaccine nationalism, to the point that they have purchased more vaccines than they actually need to vaccinate their population. So here's a quick definition of what vaccine nationalism actually means. Vaccine nationalism occurs when governments sign agreements with pharmaceutical manufacturers to supply their own populations with vaccines ahead of them becoming available for other countries. So, for example, the EU has signed enough future procurement trackments to vaccinate their citizens twice over. The US has locked in 4 times more than what's needed, and Canada has locked in about 6 times more vaccines than needed for their population. I mean, is it really necessary? And I guess in recent news we've been seeing this weird kind of fight with vaccine nationalism that the EU is trying to do with the UK, and it's just been a bit of a mess. And I'm not going to get into that because Yeah. And the issue is, when poorer countries do receive the vaccines, they end up paying more per dose than what they would if they were in rich countries. For example, Uganda has made a deal for millions of vaccines from AstraZeneca at a price of $7 per dose. And this is 3 times more than what the EU has paid per dose for the exact same jab. And then you consider transportation costs. For example, you include transport fees. That will cost $17 in total to vaccinate 1 Ugandan. This is yet another reminder that global inequalities are in fact manufactured. Because it doesn't have to be like this. So ideally, off the basis of the moral case, richer countries should help poorer countries because it's the right thing to do.
However,
everybody trying to protect their own interests, that's not going to work. There are some selfish reasons why richer countries should help poorer countries gain access to the vaccinations, and fast. First of all, the longer the vaccinations take to roll out, the longer the virus has time to mutate in the poorer countries where they don't have vaccines. And we all know if the virus mutates to a certain point, it could be resistant to the vaccines, making the vaccines redundant. And then we're back to square one. We need to vaccinate everyone. Number 2, as long as the virus is here, global trade flows and supply chains will be disrupted, causing huge economic damage, even though we're already living in it. So you already know when the first wave hit us globally, literally the whole world shut down. Estimates suggest that if the vaccines don't reach developing countries fast enough, these disruptions will cost up to a total of $9 trillion to the global economy, a cost that will mainly be borne by the richer countries, although recent studies have shown that trade data is almost back to pre-pandemic levels. So, global supply chains are being adjusted such that things can work a little bit better. However, it's not perfect. If there wasn't a selfish interest, what is even the consequences for these poorer countries? There's also this sentiment that, it's not as urgent for poorer countries and many developing countries because the death rates haven't been as high. It doesn't mean we should shut people out from receiving the vaccines because we think they don't need it more than us. Corona doesn't discriminate, so the vaccine shouldn't discriminate. When it comes to the poorer countries and the developing countries itself, a delay in the vaccinations is likely to increase poverty. Is likely to destabilize people's livelihoods even further. The World Bank actually predicts that the COVID-19 recession will push as many as 150 million people into extreme poverty. And we all know that a lot of developing countries rely on their family and relative in the diaspora as a source of income, to supplement living standards and everything like that. And what we saw in 2020 was one of the biggest drops in history of remittance payments. So that's essentially what the vaccine apartheid looks like. But there are solutions. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to stay like this. And there are some movements, there's some positive movements in the right direction. So there are some solutions. South Africa and India have suggested that manufacturers temporarily waiver their intellectual property rights, show them the recipe so that they can start manufacturing the vaccines in their own countries. But put very shortly, the rich countries ain't gonna have that. The next option, which seems to be working well, is COVAX. So COVAX is an initiative started by the World Health Organization in partnership with a range of different non-profits, which seeks to secure more doses for developing and poorer countries. However, the project is still quite underfunded, and as of February, I believe, was still about $2 billion short of its goal. So the WHO has actually asked the manufacturers to prioritize supplying COVAX with extra doses, and have also urged richer countries who have ordered beyond what their populations actually need to donate their extra vaccinations to developing countries. This has been backed by President Emmanuel Macron, giving the impression that Emmanuel Macron actually cares about African countries, but Okay, so what we actually know a few weeks ago was that Ghana was the first country to receive the free doses from the COVAX scheme, as well as Ivory Coast, and a few other countries have followed. However, is this enough? Well, the head of Africa's Centre for Disease Control and Prevention actually says the vaccines provided will not get the pandemic out of the continent. In fact, these countries actually need to vaccinate at least 60% of their population in order to reduce the effects of the pandemic. But on the current trajectory, 35% of the population being vaccinated is the only feasible path for 2021. So the picture looks bleak at the moment, but there is some hope and there are some options. However, as usual, the fate of poorer countries in the midst of a pandemic lies on the shoulders of the richer countries, who are always, don't forget this, please remember, who are always willing to act within their best interests and not for the interests of all. So to conclude, it's actually within everyone's interest that everyone has access to the vaccinations, especially the most vulnerable in this world. I don't think anyone can actually argue with that. This is important to saving lives, which will be unnecessarily lost if people engage in this vaccination politics. For rich countries and these multilateral world institutions and organizations must really aim to devote and mobilize all their resources to make sure the vaccines reach the people that need them the most. So that is actually it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you felt like you wanted to say something, please feel free to add a comment. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of this content, feel free to subscribe. My name is Felicia Yenswa, and I'd like to do more videos like this, so, hit me up. The ways you can connect with me will be in the description box below. And that's it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and see you in the next video. Bye!